Good morning to everyone joining us today from different parts of the world. So I'm Chetak Shankar from UiPath Product Marketing Team, and with me is Anubhav Shankar, one of our RPA experts. So yeah, without much ado, let's get started with today's session, which is going to be about our UiPath Data Service. I'll provide a quick overview of the product, and then Anubhav will show you all a detailed demo of UiPath Data Service. So today, if you look at data plays a pivotal role across enterprises for various reasons, be it for decision making or getting more insights or for understanding the business in different dimensions. At the same time, RPA has been helping organizations with easier handling of data across multiple business applications and systems. Now, with the growth of more data, and also evolution of RPA, we see a deeper relationship between data and automation. In order to accelerate digital transformation and improve operational efficiency, there's a need to offer data management and storage within the automation. And today, we will be talking about the data service that UiPath offers as part of our platform. Automating real world business processes that traverse multiple applications and systems often requires working with complex business data. The business data need to be stored temporarily or permanently. In these scenarios, the developers are usually faced with two common challenges. One is to figure out a location to store and manipulate the data, and the other one is to be able to consistently work with all the different variables across their workflows. So over time, using external applications and services to store and persist data in the automation can become quite cumbersome. Then we also have the centers of excellence, which that is the COEs, that always face the challenge of understanding how and where all transactional data is being stored or accessed from. This is to ensure that critical business data is not being left around on users' machines, like or file shares or even cloud storage services. So managing data security and data proliferation with end users is a new challenge for the COEs. Now, with automation being used by more and more employees across the organization, sharing of the correct data with the right users forms the significant part of the overall automation management. Hence, these are some of the key challenges why we need a data service for your RPA. Now, to address these challenges that the developers and the COEs face, we launched UiPath Data Service last year sometime October. And UiPath Data Service brings powerful no-code data modeling and storage capabilities to your RPA projects. Data Service also enables you to model and manage and store business or transactional data in a centralized manner, and also allows you to seamlessly access it faster from different automations. Data service is designed to be fully integrated with UiPath Studio and UiPath Robots, allowing you to build powerful automations that can leverage capabilities like relational data types, integrated security, and also provisioning deployments without worrying about scale. Now, what this means is that business entities modeled in data service can be imported into Studio as rich data types and can be used as variables or arguments in the workflows. So data stored in data service is always secured, persisted, and also accessed by the automation users. This removes the risk of storing critical business data in random locations. But if you're still wondering like how or where you can use the data service, you can think of a procurement process where you may want to capture information about your employees' needs for resources, it can be laptops, headphones, webcams, etc. Now you need some place to capture them before you actually create the procurement request in your procurement system. So instead of trying to get a new database or storing it on SharePoint or Google Drive, you can actually store it in UiPath Data Service and then later on use it in your procurement process, which can be automated using RPA UiPath platform. Another way you can think of using data service is in the monthly finance reporting process, which requires fetching of data from multiple systems and applications, like it can be booking applications, invoices, billing application, and payments. So today, the attended and unattended workflows retrieve this data every time they run. This also requires every user to have access and connectivity to all the backend systems. This can cause delays and sometimes cause inconsistencies in reporting because the underlying data can change before all your processes are completed. So to overcome this, what you can do is you can actually write one unattended workflow to fetch all the required data into the data service. Then all your data, whether attended or unattended workflows, can work with the data service, can work with the data that is there in the data service. So in this way, you can eliminate the need for storing the aggregated critical business data in files or on user machines. So these are some of the ways that data service can be used. So moving to the next slide, here you can see that in the overall automation lifecycle, the data service fits into the manage phase. Basically, you can use data service to manage your business data in a secure and seamless manner. Now let's look at what data service offers. You will be seeing all these features in action when actually Anubhav will talk or walk you through the demo in some time. So it offers a simple data modeling. So you can model your data as entities in data service with just a few clicks and without having to write any code. You can easily start by creating a new entity and then the fields required for the entity and also create the relationships. And the data service is integrated with UiPath suite of products. Today, it's integrated with Studio and the robots and can easily be used along with document understanding and Action Center. Soon, the integration with UiPath Apps, which is our low-code automation-powered app builder, will be made available. And similarly, the integration with other UiPath products are in progress. And then we have the scalable data store, which is basically with data service, you are now able to gather data from multiple applications and store it in one common place. With the cloud-based service, you can create automations that can automatically adapt to growing data and user volumes. So you can automatically scale your data as your need for data grows. And coming to the external integration, this is something that we plan to release this month. We will have the open API support that will allow you to integrate with external custom applications as well. So by I think end of this month, this should also be made available. Coming to the security and governance, you can store data securely and limit access to approved users with role-based access controls. So data service uses integrated security with UiPath Automation Cloud and allows you to assign permissions or roles to any users or groups in your account. In this way, no one outside of your account can access the data. By default, each tenant is configured with appropriate permissions for the default groups in your account. And with the integrated authentication for robots, also allows you to eliminate additional login requirements and ensures the secure exchange of credentials. Now, this slide basically talks about the different types of data that can be created or can be used in data service. So data service offers various rich data types like text, number, date, date time, or choice sets, and even relationships, and a few others. Like I said, Anubhav will be soon showing these in the demo. And these different types of data allows you to model all common business data that you would require for your automations. And each of these data types also have attributes like default value, minimum or maximum value, and the maximum length, etc. That that is needed to take care of your modeling needs. And like I mentioned earlier, data service allows role-based access control. You can choose at which level you want to control the data, whether at entity level or role level or field level. This means you can have complete control over who can do what, not just at the entity level, but down to specific fields themselves. So we talked about what is data service and the different types of data, but who actually needs data service? So any company, be it small, medium, or large scale, across any industry that wants its developers and business users to model and store business data for automation can benefit from data service. As data service eliminates data silos, organizations looking to control data in a better way and have seamless access to the business data across automation platform will see value in this offering. And of course, any business that doesn't have a system of record or a data store can actually start with data service. And then we have the COE leads or system admins who want to control the access of business data to various RPA users. They can now plan to provide data access to the right set of people with the role-based access controls. Finally, we have the developers who can use data service and model and store and persist data across different automations. Now they don't have to go through the cumbersome route of fetching data from different applications every time they want to use business data. And also the RPA users who want to share transactional data with other users through automation can make use of data service. So this makes it much easier for business users to share transactional data with other users. Now coming to the benefits, data service is available out of the box without any additional cost. There is no separate licensing required. It will be available in UiPath Automation Cloud. I mean, currently it's available on our Automation Cloud, and anybody who has access to Automation Cloud will be able to see data service on the left now. So along with other products, data service would be one of them that would be made available, is available to everyone, be it on community edition or the enterprise edition. You can, so you can now simply use a data service for creation and consumption. I mean, you can use it to for consumption in your automations with an integrated cloud-based data service without writing a single line of code. So it's just using drag and drop or selection of a few buttons. You are able to now create tables, entities, and assign permissions to different users. Data service also enables you to eliminate data silos by integrating with any enterprise or legacy system. It also allows you to seamlessly access and reuse data and models across multiple automations from UiPath Studio. And the best part, you have enterprise grade security for your data being used in automations and avoid data proliferation. And with your automations growing every day, you can now easily scale your data needs. It's very easy to scale your data service based on the need that you have for the incremental data in your automations. So with this, I think I'll hand it over to Anubhav, who will show you how to create an entity and then assign different levels of permission using data service. So Anubhav, yeah.
Thank you, Chetak. That was a great presentation. Hi, everyone. My name is Anubhav Shankar, and I'm part of the Global Services team here in UiPath. And for the next half an hour or so, I'm going to walk you through how to exactly work with data services. And for that, let me start sharing my screen, and we'll together see how we can develop the data service related. Chetak, if you can confirm, you can see my screen.
Yes, Anubhav, I can see your screen.
All right, so let's start from the beginning itself. So first of all, how do you access data service? So data service will be one of the options in the left-hand side panel. You can just simply click on data service that is there, and you will get this particular page wherein the landing page will show you all the entities that have been created for your organization. How do you create a new entity? For creating a new entity, you can just click on create new entity, give your entity a name. Let's say I want to create entity for a vendor. You can provide a small description. This will contain the vendor information, something like this, and I can save this. Once I do this, the vendor entity gets created, and you will see that there are 5 number of fields that are already created. And these are system built-in fields that gets created, which includes a unique identification field called ID, who created this, and what was the creation time, updated by, and updated time. These will be going on. These fields will be taken care by the system themselves on each record entry, so that we have a perfect log trail for whatever we are doing within this particular entity. So at this particular moment, what I want to do is I want to create new fields for this entity. Apart from the system field that is already available, let's suppose I want to create a couple of fields. So the first field that I want to create is something called vendor code, right? And I will mark this as a required field because I have to work with that. And when I click on more details, you will see that I have certain options. So let's suppose our vendor code was of type number, right? And this number has to vary from 0 to any 4-digit characters. So I'll keep it. Sorry, I'll keep it as four nines here, and starting from 0. So anything that any value that is there between 0 to 4 nines is an accepted value for this one. So we have kind of like bounded this particular field with the upper limit and lower limit. We have the option of providing a default value, and we also have the option of providing certain description. Let's say And I can mark this for further role-based field access. So as Chetak already mentioned that we have a very granular and explicit permission a way of accessing fields, permission distributions. So I can mark this field to be accessible for only certain kind of roles. So let me do that, and we will take care of this one once we go and see user management systems. When I click on this, I will see that this vendor code gets generated. And let me create another field. And here I'll give vendor name. And for this, again, from choices I have, text is the most apt one for this particular field. So I'll use this. I'll mark it as a required field, and I can keep the length as is, and I can say save. This is another interesting field that you will find in here. And let's suppose that we want to also store vendor NDAs that has been signed, and basically that will be in the form of certain kind of PDF that has been signed. So if I want to save those things within data service, that is also possible, and I can choose the field type and assign it to type of file. And when I choose this file type, it basically enables this field to store any kind of file that I'm going to upload. And there is a limitation in terms of size of 10 MB. But apart from that, any format, any kind of file can be uploaded to this particular entity. Right now, based on these three fields, I feel that my vendor entity is ready. I want to keep it simple. And the second entity that I want to create is, let's say, purchase orders, wherein I'll track all the purchase orders created, right? I have another entity that is created. And before I go ahead and create purchase orders, I want to create something called a choice set. And what are choice sets? Choice sets are basically, you can imagine it as a static list of items in a programming lexicon. What it gives you is that it bounds the fields wherever you choose this to be. Let's say if I want to name it as department, I can choose certain names, right? Let's say the first department is my product. The second is operations, and the third one that I want to keep is services. I have these three departments in my organization for which purchase orders can be raised. So I'll keep these choices as an option. Let me save this. So now I have this department choice set that has been created. It has three choices that we can choose from. And I'm going to use this in my entity that I have just created to actually include it in every record. So in here, what I can do is I can create a field called department, and I can choose from the type a choice set. And in here, I get the option of all the choices that I've created. If I have not created it so far, I can also create it directly from here. And I can select it. I can make it as multiple selectable fields, or I can keep it single. For me, it makes a single choice more relevant. So I'll keep it that way, and I'll save this. Apart from that, what I want to create is purchase PO number field to keep a track of what PO has been generated. I'll keep it as text. I'll let's say the maximum length. I'll keep it as 20, hoping that it will not cross 20 length when we are providing the PO number. And the next thing that I can provide is, let's say, PO raised date. And this can be of type date time. In here, I have the option of hiding the time field. If I am only concerned about a date, I can keep in the format that chooses only date. And if I am also concerned about having the time field filled in, I can have the time field included as well. The options are given here. So you can see how easy it is to create these things. There's no coding that I need to do. It's all simply something that we are doing on the user interface itself. And for this, let me make it as a default value of the date when the data entry is happening, right? I can save this. And then apart from that, there is one another thing, and one of the most important thing is that of relationship, something that Chetak already mentioned in his presentation. And in the relationship part, we have the ability of establishing a relationship between two entities. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish a relationship between the purchase order and the vendor entity. So the purchase order is raised against each of the vendors. Basically, they are somebody who is going to supply those items. So for me, I am going to include vendor name as one of the fields. I will establish a relationship, and I will say that this field can contain values only from the records that is present in the vendor entity, right? And within this particular entity, because I have chosen vendor name here, I will be displaying the vendor name. If I would have chosen a vendor code, for example, I could have displayed vendor code from the entity relationship itself. So the value that is going to be displayed here in relationship with this particular entity is going to be vendor name, right? And I will save this as well. So there you go. Now we have everything created, everything is ready in terms of my entity relationships. Now let's go back and see how we can create user management. So first of all, there are certain default roles that has been created for you that you can use. For example, automation developers. Automation developers have the rights of designer and data writer, right? So a designer is somebody who has the capability of designing the schema, and data writer is somebody who can read and write. And let me just show you everything. So data writer has these permissions in this one. It can view all the schema, and it has complete read and write access for all the entities, right? Similarly, if we have administrator, they have certain rights as well. Administrator, designer, data writer, and everything. Similarly, automation users have data writer. Basically, they have access to all the read and write activities over the entities. There is a read-only option for everyone, somebody who is just there as a user, not a developer. They will probably want to see all the items and not basically worry about anything else. So if you see the data reader option, you will see the permission that we have access of only viewing all the schemas and read access across all the entities. Now these things were related to having default permissions that is there, right? I deleted one of those things because I was playing around with it. So let me just delete it and start from the scratch. So these, I am going to talk to you about custom roles that we can create. That is what I did it here, and that is what I'm going to do it again. Right. Right now, I'm deleting all the roles that I had created already. Let me do it from scratch for you. So if I want to create a new role, basically a custom role according to the way your enterprise functions, Let's say we have somebody who manages the purchase orders. So we can give him the rights. We can create a role called purchase orders, and we can give them rights to, let's say, I don't want to give them right to manage the schema and everything that is already created. But from the data access permission, I want this purchase order manager to have access to purchase order entity, and he can have access to read access of purchase order, edit access of purchase order, and delete basically the complete access of purchase order itself. But from a vendor perspective, he cannot go ahead and create anything. He can only read it because that will be required. There is a relationship. But apart from that, he cannot go ahead and modify anything that is there. Right. So this permission should be enough for the purchase managers to deal with the data that is going to be entered in purchase order entity types. Okay. And let me show you this in action. For example, I'll assign this permission to myself. I'll make myself as the purchase order manager. I'll save it. And if I go to the entities, and if I go to the purchase order, I'll have access to do everything else. What I'm interested in the restrictions, so I'll go to the vendors. But when I create a new field, let me see. Sorry, not the field. Create a new data entry. If I add new data, let's say I give name as test vendor one. I can select a file here. Let me see if that was a mandatory field. But anyway, this will fail because I don't have access to the vendor code part as well, and I don't have permission to actually go ahead and do this. Okay, so apart from that, let's say you were the let's go back and create somebody who actually has access to the vendor. So in the user management, I'll go ahead and create a new role, and I'll name him as vendor admin. This is somebody who will have access to the vendors entity itself. And I will give him the complete access because he's the admin. And if you remember that I created vendor code that had the specific access that needed to be provided to him. So I can create specific permissions that might be required for these fields individually. So this field will have its own access permissions that might be required. And this will be a permutation combination kind of a situation. So you have to be aware what situations require permissions to both of the things, and what might be okay by just providing the access to let's say vendor level details. So if I save this vendor admin, and let me assign that role to myself as well. If I access this, give myself as vendor admin. If I now go back to my data service, show you on the vendor level, and let me say I go to the data part, create a new data. I can create. I had access to the vendor code now. I will give a name as vendor one, and I also have the option of uploading a file, which for now I'm not going to do. If I do this, I should be able to create this. So I have that kind of granular control. I have that kind of flexibility in terms of creating an enterprise specific roles and assign those roles to the users as well. Right. And now let's come down to how we can use these things in our project. So within the studio project, once you connect to an orchestrator that has these entities established, you will get something called manage entities at the ribbon, the menu ribbon that you see here. Once you click on the manage entities button, based on the automation, the cloud account that you're connected to, you will get the list of all the entities that is present there, and then you can make the selection of exactly what you need to bring it down for this particular project. For example, for this particular project, I'll need only vendor and purchase orders. So I'll just simply click on this. This is my namespace that is going to be used. So let's say I want to name it as data, and I can save it now. So if I do this, it will create the entity within my studio project itself, and it will help me get access to these items just the way I would have access any other object resources within the UiPath ecosystem. So if I go to the main project, which I have it here, and let me create a sequence so that I can simply drag and drop in stuff. You'll see now that I have installed these entities to be used for my project, you will see that this kind of message will come into picture. You can now import the entities locally in your project as objects. If you want to store the data service as well, you need to install data service activity pack. So there is a related activity pack that is there, and once you download this, you will be able to interact with the data service entities and the functionality that it provides. So let me install that, and let me show you what this activity pack actually contains. All right, the activity pack was installed, and if I go here, you will see within the activity set, there is something called data service, and within that, you will get three classification: batch functions, entity record functions, and file functions. So this is fairly straightforward. For the batch functions, if you want to deal with multiple entity records at one go, you're going to use the batch operations. For entities that you're going to use single records to deal with any kind of CRUD application that you want to do, you can make use of these things. And if there are files associated with your records, you can go ahead and use the file to upload those files as well. So in here, let me try to show you how easy it is to actually create the data types that we have downloaded so far. So if I want to, for example, create a data type, by the way, the entities that you install it right now is converted into .NET entities. So they have their own data type available here. For example, right now, I simply dragged and dropped vendor, and it has become an argument for me that I can directly use. If I name it vendor, this can be directly used. Similarly for purchase orders as well. If I simply drag and drop here, and if I want to use it, I can simply name it as purchase orders. Purchase order, and these are ready to be used within my system. So let's do one entry. Let's see how the create entity records work. For example, once you drag and drop the create entity record in the drop down menu itself, it will help you with all the options in terms of the entity that is present within this particular project, and you can choose any of them depending upon what you are dealing with at the moment. So right now, if I want to do an entry for vendor type, I can select data vendor, and I will have to provide an input record and the output record. And for that, let me create the vendor record itself. That's it, right? And in here, let me use assign activity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign the values to all the fields of it. How to access field? I can simply put a dot, and all the properties of it will be available in here. For example, vendor name. I want to assign the vendor name. Let's say, because I'm entering from Studio Enterprise. right? Let me duplicate this because I will have to enter another item, and that will be equals to the vendor code because that was a mandatory field. And the vendor code, as I remember, had anything above 0 and below 4 nines. So let me just randomly put some value. And let me see if anything else was there. Yeah, I think there was a file that was there. So for file, we'll do it once the record is ready. Here I can put in as vendor. I can take this record out as, let me get that out as well again. Let me create a variable out. So out window will contain all your system fields and your ID regarding the one that has been created. And within this particular vendor, I'll get this record because I am going to use this particular records ID because I want to upload certain kind of file. So if I want to upload a file to complete the entry to this one, what I'm going to do is I have to simply drag and drop it here, provide the record ID to which I want to attach the file. Then I have to provide the field to which wherein the file format was there. So you will see that only the field where file was chosen will be available within this particular dropdown. So I had only one, so there is no problem in that. And let me just quickly copy one of the sample document that I have so that I have something to actually go ahead and play around with. So I have this sample.pdf that is present in my local folder now. So I'll do sample.pdf, right? And I can get this out on the out window again. No problem in that. Right. Once I run this, this should be able to create the vendor directly on the data service that we have. It is executing. It has created the entity, and there is a problem. Let me see what happened. Okay. Okay, right. So this has the. Let me see if I can refresh this. If I have the right one. All right. So what happened is I already had before this particular demo, so that everything goes perfectly. I was practicing the demo itself. So there was the studio was open, and what happens in this case is that whenever there is an entity that has had a local copy, you have to refresh it when you change those entity values in the cloud, and that is what I had to do in here. Once I refresh this, you will see that there is two markers that is available here, and that signifies that these entities have been changed, and I need to update this. And now that I will save this, hopefully this should work better. And possibly this was a good thing, so that you can see that what are the things that you need to do once you change your entity itself. You will have to refresh your projects so that the right kind of items are available within your system. So in here, I'm hoping the field is now available. Yes. And hopefully this should work again. So let me give it a second try. Yep, it worked. And since it worked, I can go and actually check the data. And if I refresh this, now I have, this was the mismatch because the name was changed for the entity that I had. But in here, I was able to upload the item. I had this sample.pdf that was uploaded, and I have the option to download it as well. Right, so that's how you deal with these kind of entities. And in the interest of time, I will quickly show you one of the projects that is pre-built, wherein I'm using entities as the backbone. Basically, it can be treated as a standalone application that I was able to build using only the forms that I have. So let me first run it, and then we can discuss about the functionality and how we were able to achieve those things. I have the form rendered. You can see it here. Let me try to maximize this. All right, so this is my form. This form is called One Solution. You can imagine it as a contact center end user solution. Herein, the customers will get calls, emails, multiple ways the customer can reach out to them, and based on that, if the customer is new, the agent will create a new customer. It can open a new case using that particular customer, and based on what the work items have happened, it can update the customer. So at the back end of this particular process is 3 or 4 databases that is getting updated, but in reality you would be doing a lot more than that. You will have multiple applications that the processes will be dealing with, so that the result becomes better. So in this particular case, let's say that I'm going to add a customer, and I have provided a customer ID, the name, let's say John Doe. I can give name as email as something like this, and contact number. And there's a format that is associated with it. So I can do this, and I can click on add customer. So right now my process should be running, and it is going to create the entity, the customer record into the entity, customer details entity that is already there. This is completed. That means I will be able to work in here again. I can open this particular case and assign it to somebody within my team. Let's say this particular case, problem description, network failure, needs repairing, something like this. And what is the team that I'm going to assign it to? This is again the choice set dropdown that we discussed. That is going to be reflected, and then I can add certain kind of items in here. Let me just add something in here for the reference, and I can click on open the case to open this particular case for the customer. Let me go back and see. So in here, what it is doing, it is actually referencing the customer, getting the customer out first, and then it is going to create a new entity because it is going to have a reference one. All right, that's completed. That means my item is open now. And let's go to the case worksheet. In the case worksheet, I can search for the customers directly in here. This is again going to reflect in the activities that is going to happen. Again, you will see that there's only one thing that I need to do. This is all dealing with the data service, purely data service, nothing else. And imagine doing this in your RPA workflows. If this was the requirement, you would be developing a lot of things directly in here. So the problem statement for this one is not mentioned. Okay. in any case, I'll go ahead and update this particular case. Let's say started checking customer from. I'll choose operations team. Who was the owner? I'll mention the agent's name, and I'll click on update case. If I click on update case, I should be able to go back and see it working. It is actually updating. So it updated the case history, right? And now that it has updated the case history, I should be able to see it within my form itself. If I go back and if I fetch history, okay. No, probably the case was not created in between. That's why this failed. But you get the picture. Let me try to walk you through the complete item that is there. What exactly was happening between this case? So I had multiple scenarios that were covered. There was add customer, there was opening of the case, there was search, there was fetch history and update. So how I was able to actually achieve these things? First of all, anything and everything that I'm doing in here is directly using the entity activities and entity themselves. For example, creating of the customer was a pretty straightforward thing. If you see in my argument, I have all the details, customer details stored in the customer details entity that was created, and that is being passed in creating of the customer entity in here, right? After this, there was a creation of the case, and the creation of the case basically had a relationship with the customer. So in this case, what I used is I wanted to actually point this particular thing out because it's really, really powerful. There is something called query entity records. Query entity records is something that you will be using quite often to actually extract all the records that is there based on certain criterias that you select. So in here, I had the customer ID with me, with which I wanted to open this particular create this particular customer case, and and that's why I have chosen customer ID, which is basically the field of this particular entity that you are querying. Give it a second. It should actually show you the complete set of items. Let me try to reopen this. So these are all the fields that were related to the entity that I'm going to query to. So I wanted to query customer details, and I wanted to get the item where customer ID is customer ID that I fetched from the argument in here. Right. Once the customer ID was available to me, I was able to assign that particular, the customer entity was available to me. I was able to assign it to the customer case, customer ID, wherein I was able to store the customer reference, and then I created the entity record. And that's how you will create entries for records wherein a relationship is required. You will query so that the integrity of the entities are maintained. And once you create these records, after you create these records, only then you can actually go ahead and upload the files that is associated with these entities as well. Next process that was done was get case by customer. Again, this is Very simple, very straightforward. I was searching for the case in the case details database that I have, and I had these cases built in. So I had this option of customer ID, whether the case is active or not, and I have the option of adding more conditions if I want, and these could be based on whether it's an OR condition or an AND condition, and I also have the option of adding group items as well, right? All those things can be done from the query entity records from within this item itself. And then the second last one was get case history by ID. Again, a simple query search record. And the last one was updating of the query, wherein I got the case history. And in the case history itself, I added a new entry which started reflecting once I asked to fetch the history back, which was done in here by querying the entity records. So that's pretty much it. You saw that each of these workflows contains only one or two in case of where the relationship is being established between the entities. And using only these activities, we were able to achieve the end results, which is basically a complete entity, business entity framework for our application that we just created. Right. Let me see if I have something more to cover from the screen itself. All right, so these were the entities that were being referenced. This is the case details, and these are the data fields that were there. Similarly, there will be customer details. This is where my customer details were getting lodged. Here's the John Doe one that we did an entry for. And then we have case history, wherein all the case histories for all the cases were being stored. And this is the Ashish Mehta entry where the network was not working, and all those stuff. So if you see the case details part, you will see that the customer ID was a relationship. Basically, that required a customer to be assigned to this, and that's why there were two entities: one for querying the customer to get it out, and then creating the final entity by referencing it within the customer entity itself and uploading it here. All right, with that, let me go back to the slides, and let me try to cover a couple of other things that I want to cover. So let's talk about how this particular framework looks like. So what you saw right now was me working on the web application front when I was dealing with Automation Cloud, the data service that you saw within the Automation Cloud. It's the web application that provides the user experience, the user interface to actually go ahead and create the data service, interact with the data service. Any kind of interaction that you have with data service, be it on the web, be it from within the studio, or be it from the robot runs, all these operations are actually performed by REST endpoints, and that is signified in here. This particular REST endpoints is important because there is quota. The data service units have a specific number of API calls that you can make per day based on your licensing type. And then there is something called runtime and storage management service. These are basically responsible for ensuring that whatever operations that you're doing on the entities and records are getting executed well, and are getting executed according to your let's say permission settings and everything. And talking about the permission settings, that is being stored in something called a metadata store, wherein not only the user permissions but also the schemas and the field information and stuff like that is getting stored. Basically, the information of the exact data store that you're creating is getting stored in the metadata store. And the data store will obviously contain all your records and the entities that you have created, from where you can actually access the information. Now, Talking about the use cases, there are certain use cases that are listed in the official document. Think of this particular slide as the situations wherein you will find data service to be very useful. First of all, any place that is starting from ground, you can have the new data. Database created, business entity created for your automation from the scratch itself. You will also find it very, very helpful wherever you have multiple robots running and you are basically performing some kind of data aggregation before you actually go ahead and take action. For example, the way the one solution system was working, all those data, let's suppose the case details, the customer details, and everything is coming from robots that are running in some separate machines, and it is being updated on the data service. It will be basically on a very real-time basis that I will be able to function on the one solution if the data is being updated directly on the data service and not somewhere someplace else from whether I'll have to manually refer to it or uh, act it over the system that is there. The next thing is that you will also find it really useful in systems where there are uh, data that is spread across multiple automations. Now, what I mean to say is that if you have certain business entities that is involved in multiple automations that you have created, in that case, to actually manage the integrity of the data or actually manage the single source of truth, you can absolutely go back to data service and start using it. Another thing, and this is basically that something that you saw right now during the demo, that just by defining the schema, just by defining the kind of uh, entity that you would like, you can actually have these things imported as rich.NET variables that you can start utilizing it from Studio without having the cumbersome ways of dealing with, let's say, data table or dictionaries or things like that. You have a very clean way of representing it within your systems, very readable way, very maintainable way if you start using data service in here. Talking about the key differentiators that we have, first of all, the data service is highly scalable. It is very secure because the data is encrypted both at transit and at rest, and it can also help you provide more contextualized automation experience. When I say contextualize, what I mean is that if you have multiple things that are running and you want to maintain a single source of truth, data service can be your way to go about it. We are looking at integrating data service with the UiPath suite of products. This includes everything. We have already started with Studio and robots that were of the highest priority. Next in line is apps, AI Center, etc. And this is going to ensure that the data consumption becomes easier for you across the UiPath products. And there is a consistent business entity framework that is underlining when you are using the UiPath platform. The data service is capable of providing end-to-end data modeling, management, and storage functions to automation initiatives. And also that the data service adopts the UiPath theme of providing ease of use and has easy drag and drop modeling experience, just the way you saw. And it saves a lot of effort when dealing with data within any of the automation project. Let's talk about the roadmap. The things that you saw right now, these were available since the 2020 cycle itself. You had the availability of choice sets, you had the availability of files, you had custom rules at the entity level and things like that. In 2021, what you're going to get, obviously, a more granular way of handling the data, which means record level permissions and column level permissions, which you already saw in this particular demo, will be there. We have already introduced support for bulk inserts, bulk updates, and this is available within your Studio that you can see, and integration with apps is also on cards, but this will be obviously available towards the end. Another thing that I wanted to show you, give me a second. One second. Let me just show you something. Hi, Chetak. Can you confirm? Are you able to hear me? I think I had a fluctuation.
I can hear you, Anubhav.
All
But
right.
yeah, you're not sharing your screen though.
Yeah. I was able to basically it got disconnected for a bit. All right. So what I wanted to show you is something called API access that has been introduced. This is something that I'm personally is yet to explore. But this is something that is going to help you in creating custom applications, and this will give sorry, and this will give the ability of integrating your custom applications to the data services itself. Apparently, I don't have enough rights to access this particular one at the moment, so I will not be able to see this. But this will be available to you as well. This is not accessible to me right now, but keep in mind that API access is something that is going to come. This is going to give you a lot of freedom in terms of creating your custom applications, probably creating your requirements of data, fulfilling the requirements of your data from external applications. You can integrate it with other enterprise level applications, for example, ServiceNow, Salesforce, things like that. Once you design the workflow diagrams within those applications, you can have these data being pushed within this particular data service from there directly, and probably make a lot more use while developing it. And with that, I have come to the end of my presentation, and possibly what we can do is we can take your questions now.
Hey, Anubhav, actually, there were a couple of questions. Maybe one of them was, can we import data from text or CSV or Excel files? Is that something available now?
Right. So importing and exporting is on the map, Chetak. It's
Okay.
going to be it's going to be available soon, but we cannot pinpoint on a timeline.
Yeah, okay. No, I answered that, but I just wanted to be sure if
Yeah.
it was something that was released, is going to be released this month. So that's fine. Okay. And is there a limit on the number of rows we can add to a table?
No, but there's a total limit of the data that is going to be stored per DSU. So the data service is distributed in terms of data service units, and we have enterprise limit of 1 GB of the total data that can be stored within 1 DSU.
Okay,
And
great.
this is 5 GB for the files, by the way. So 1 GB of pure entity, and file is calculated separately, which is 5 GB.
Okay. And this is for one data service unit, correct?
One data service unit. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. And I think there's a question from there was a question from Sylvia here. The ID value can be provided when creating a record. For example, to make it match an ID generated in some application, or this should be addressed as a different field always.
You're talking about the system generated ID, Sylvia?
Hi, sorry to interrupt. I gave permission for any participant to unmute. So Sylvia, if you want to add something, you can unmute yourself as well.
Yes, thank you, Andrea.
Yes, I referred exactly to that.
Yeah, no, so that is system generated. We have to keep it separate. That's a GUID that is getting created automatically, but you can always and always create a field specific for your application IDs.
Perfect, thank you.
And Anubhav, there was a question about serializing the entities. I mean, can these entities, are these entities serializable for it to work with Action Center?
So this does not have a direct integration with Action Center at the moment. The data that if you are going to use this data in the Action Center, I don't see there should be any problem because these are .NET variables at the end of the day, and yes, it should work perfectly fine in that case. But I haven't checked it, so I'll not put it as a source of truth. Let me go back. Let me look into it, and I'll provide the answer to the community managers.
Great. Okay. And we have one other question, which is basically, does all automations, including entities, have to run in modern folders? And what's the
Yes.
main difference on default and modern folders?
Yeah. So all the new items that are getting created, all the new products that are coming in, basically these are forward-looking products. And as you are aware that we are going to decommission the classic way of handling things. Classic folders will be decommissioned soon. So modern folders is the only way to go about data service because it will help you adopt to the new ways of working quite soon. The difference between the classic folder and the modern folder is that modern folders give you a lot more granular permissions. Basically, the user management gets a lot more granular. So you can have multiple types of access for the same users based on the folder at which it is there. Whereas on the classic folder, it was mostly related to the organization units or at the tenant level, whatever permissions you have provided that used to get propagated.
Yeah, thanks, Anubhav. And we have, I think, a couple of more questions coming in.
Guys, you can unmute yourself.
You can. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think anybody who wants to ask a question can unmute and then ask the question. I mean, you don't need to type in here. You can directly ask the question.
Hemal?
Hi. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi. Is there any place to see current usage of the data service? Because we have 5 GB limit now. So is there any to see?
Yes, that is there. Let me show you that. Give me a second. I think this is where you can actually look at it from the data service units perspective within the licenses. This is there in robots and services.
We can see current usage there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, hi Anubhav, Praveen here. So I have one question. Suppose we are editing the data on the orchestrator from this data service for one of the raw item, and suppose there another user where bot is running and also trying to update the same record, same raw item. So how will it be managed in case of like committing data?
So if you are already on the editing mode, probably it will fail. The robot will fail because you are already at hold of that particular record. But if you have already completed it, then if the robot runs after you have completed it, it will be the latest update that the robot has provided. And if your update is something, for example, if you haven't taken that edit right and that writing is happening for the robot right now, then once you take that particular edit right, then whatever value you provide, that will override the robots. So if you're already in edit mode, it will fail. Else, based on who writes it first, the one that is writing last will get the last. The priority, the update.
Okay, so a robot will be failed if we are accessing same item and I'm trying to update it in
Yes,
that case.
yes.
Okay. Uh, okay, I have one more question, but there is, I think, one more pending in chat. You can go ahead with that. Then I will
No,
answer.
that's fine, Praveen. Go ahead.
Actually, I'm remembering that I thought of asking. I forgot, that's why.
No worries, no worries. Let me see on the chat in that case. How will you suggest utilizing queue items with data service? Oh, that's a really good question. Basically, queue items are something that helps you keep intact the items that are there that are mostly in transactional in nature, and that mostly makes sense when they are singular in their appearance. Data service is something that has that basically supersedes the transaction item way of doing things. And what you can do it here is that you can query multiple records at one go. You can make sense out of your data that has been stored for long. And on the other side, the queue has an advantage in terms of the kind of mechanism, the kind of governance it has in place. The robot understands that it has to process the queue one after the other, and you have queue triggers and everything. So based on the kind of utilization that you have in queue is completely different the way the data service has been looked at. Data service is more of a data layer that is there within your automation, while queue is your transactions or the work item that the robot has to complete. And while completing this, the robot can actually go ahead and use the data service to, let's say, keep a record of it, reference of it for historic purpose, for any kind of work that any other robot might want to do. But at the end of the day, from the control, governance, and running purposes, queue items are still the way to go about it.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Sorry, Radomir here from OLX
Yes.
Group.
Hi.
So as you might know, OLX Group is quite big in Europe and in Latam and also in Asia. And we are also part of Naspers Group, and our main is Process Group. With that said, we have a lot of groups, a lot of entities, and we have a lot of different ERP systems and CRM systems and finance systems, etc. And we need some data integration tool. Currently, we are using Delboomi.
Sorry, what are you using?
Delboomi.
Can you spell that out?
DELL, like Dell laptops, PCs, and then Boomi, BOOMI.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
And Delboomi uses doesn't use any interface as you showed. It uses XML and coding to perform some actions.
Right.
Now, I'm trying to figure out how can I present this to my data team and to tell them this is actually better and more useful than Delboomi. I was hoping that you know what Delboomi is so we can compare.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not really aware of that. That's why I wanted to make sure. But from the looks of it, data service is still something that you can go ahead and present it, because it's still a no-code platform, and you have everything in place. From the integration front, the point that you raised right now, I want to assure you that there is things at works within the product team itself. We are going to acknowledge, we are going to take into consideration all the enterprise ERPs and CRMs that is there, and with which integrations will be required. And we are going to work on it so that the journey becomes a lot more smoother for the customers.
So yeah, I saw that you have these APIs, but I didn't get, do you have API that can directly fetch data from S4HANA? Because this is our source of truth.
We'll have to take it in another call, probably to see in the use case perspective. From S4HANA, we have certain kind of offerings that is there, but I'll have to talk to the S4HANA experts to comment more on it. From data service point of view, we have open APIs that you can create custom applications for. And we, in the future, we are going to create custom integrations for ERP and CRM systems as well.
Okay, thank you so much. If you would be so kind to let me know where I can contact you, so we can maybe schedule a call between your S4HANA guys and my data science team, so we can have some meeting and we can present to you what we need. Then you can tell us what can be the solution.
Let me drop in. I'm not really sure whether you'll have my email ID, but I'm dropping into you. So you can actually go ahead and drop me a mail, and I'll get you in touch with the product team.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Also, Radomir, you can just send us your email. I'll also talk to the product manager, and I'll maybe, if required, I can send out an email connecting you both, and maybe you can take it up from there.
Okay, I just sent back to Anubhav my email.
Okay, yeah, that should be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
We have another question in the chat box. So is the data service integrated with the test suite? Is it possible to use it instead of the variation file in data-driven tests?
Not at the moment, it's not, but it is there on the roadmap. We are going to integrate with the complete product suite. Wherever it makes sense, you will see data service coming in.
Okay, Anubhav, on the data service on the orchestrator, so how many records maximum we can see on the, if there are millions of the record on the table, so all the records will be loaded here, or how it will happen here in the orchestrator?
I think it's a pagination kind of a thing that is there. You can choose between the views that is there. Let me go and see if I have any of this nicely populated. Okay, I have maximum of 11, but it should be enough to show you the pagination part of it. So if you see below, it's the same thing, the way we have for orchestrating everything. So it will be broken down into pages that you can navigate.
Okay, and on column name, there is also a sort option available, sorting the data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, and another is suppose we are working and one of the processing is in production, and through UiPath Studio, suppose we are doing some changes there, and by mistake we delete some of the records. So is there any option to roll back the transaction or anything like this to avoid such issues?
Sorry, I did not get your scenario.
Suppose we have this production table and we did the coding part and everything, but by mistake there is some wrong condition and data get deleted from the table. So do we have any rollback transaction option to get the data back, or it will be permanently deleted?
For the record, if you delete it, it's permanently gone. But from the entity's perspective, you can recover it within 7 days.
Okay, we can recover it in 7 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
I see chats. Let me see. Okay. What is meant by DSU? Is it an entity, and one entity can store 1 GB of data? So data service unit is a way we package data service itself. What it means is that when you have your studio licenses or robot licenses, these goes as an add-on to that licenses itself. You don't have to pay extra for it. And yes, you are right that data service unit itself will contain the ability of storing 1 GB of entity data, 5 GB of your file data, and I think up till 10,000 of API calls per day. That is equivalent to 1 DSU provisioning. The second question is it possible to do complex queries, join type from the DS orchestrator console? So from the orchestrator, I don't think so. We have anything to actually go ahead and search for the queries using some kind of query items itself. But that's a great point. I can raise it to the product managers and see if we have something in works, because I'm not aware at the moment. But any kind of data can be searched directly from here. But I don't see any field that can do some kind of complex queries directly from the web interface. The whole idea was to keep it really, really simple.
Okay, but can we do that join in that in Studio? Do we have that activities in
Yes.
Studio to make?
So within the query itself, let me go back and show you that. Within the query item itself, you have all these queries that you can do. Where is it open? Okay, give me a second. Some problem with my display. Right. So in here, you have the ability of doing all those things. You can add more options. You can add more options, and the join and those things can be taken care by group. So you can actually go ahead and create all those things.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So data service supports transactions. Is it possible to do complex queries, join type from the data service orchestrator?
Yeah, that I answered already, but data support transaction, I'm assuming that you're asking about when we do batch transactions. So let me focus on that as well. Give me a second. So if you see in the batch files, it's a fail first kind of a mechanism that has been provided right now. Why can't I see it? Oh, okay. This is the one. Data service, batch. Let's say I am creating multiple entries. So you will see an option in here on the panel where you can actually choose what you need to do. So you can see that continue batch on failure as true or false based on if you want to, it's kind of a fail first kind of a mechanism. If any of the records fail, it will stop inputting the next part of it. And if you keep it as true, it will try to actually go ahead and input all the items that is possible for it to actually go ahead and input those records within data service.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. It has been an interesting conversation so far.
If there aren't any other questions, which it seems like there aren't, and we are being also mindful of the time, and we still have 1 minute together. So before closing, allow me to invite all of you to the next meetup taking place in the same global chapter on the 18th of March on the subject of how to seamlessly connect testing with your application and RPA projects in ServiceNow. So join us 8 days from now there. The same gang will be there to welcome you, myself and Vibor. Many of you know Vibor. Thank you, Anubhav. Thank you, Chetak, for your presence, for your time, and for your effort and for your patience to respond to all the questions. Very spot on. Thank you all for being here today. Have a good day, have a good evening, and you'll find the recording on the event page. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.